for 20 years, because I'm 29 and I was 9 when I started. I've also directed for a number of shows, and I've adapted scripts for a lot of prominent titles. But I'm doing a whole separate panel on adaptive writing tomorrow, so I won't get too far into that. Shows you might know me from. Dr. Stone, I'm Senku. My Hero Academia, I'm Tamaki. I'm Oscar in RWBY. Alphonse in Fullmetal Alchemist. Lucifer in Devil as a Part-Timer. And yeah, several other things. This is a Q&A. It said so in the title, so I hope y'all got the cues. Cause yeah, I didn't prepare a presentation. Yes?
What's the most emotional scene you've recorded so far? I don't know if I've asked that before, I forget if I have.
The most emotional I've gotten in a scene was Dr. Stone, mostly because I was able, I'd been taking classes and like learning to, basically, okay, so I think especially for people raised as men, you are sort of taught that the adaptive thing to do is to suppress strong emotions when they come up. It's like, oh, I think I want to cry. Good grief, put that down, because you will be mocked viciously, you know? You will not get what you want if you cry. And so you sort of build up a reflex that says, I'm feeling an emotion, I shut it down. I'm feeling an emotion, I shut it down. Anger, sorrow, all these things. And when you're an actor, that is suddenly not a good skill. That's not a good reflex to have anymore, because what you want to do is feel that emotion and then let it through, which is kind of hard. And so I was taking classes to get good at that. And then the first show that I happened to be working on, where I had an opportunity to like put that work I'd been doing to use, was Dr. Stone. So it's when we put my former enemy, Tsukasa, into cryosleep. And I am trying to distract him from sort of the pain of being frozen to death by talking about Mario and mushrooms and just silly stuff. And I remember I just started telling myself, like, okay, this is the hard part. This is the hard part. Just get him through this. And there's something in that repetition that like got me crying. And that's the first time that in 20 years I had cried in the booth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to see you be back as Lucifer in Devil Part-Timer. What's that been like? Seeing how it's been like, what is it, 7 years since, or something like that, since you've been on back on the wall?
I reckon so, yeah. I was probably 21, 22 when I got that role.
Yeah.
I was still in college when I got that role, which was awesome, because in college I was working at a movie theater, so I needed every buck I could get. That's why you'll see me in some raunchier titles if you go back to my college days. I was not discriminating. I can never be president of anything, probably. Yeah, my political opponents would dig that shit up and destroy me. Damn. Yeah, but it's good to be back. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
So were there, like, throughout like your entire career as like a voice actor, were there any roles that you found like particularly like challenging? Like you had to be like outside of like your comfort zone a little bit?
Yeah, Miyuki Shirogane is very challenging. He's manlier than me in so many ways. He's another character who's much smarter than me. I'm hesitant to call it a trend, because it'll probably stop at this point. But between Moriarty and Moriarty the Patriot, which is about the Sherlock antagonist, Miyuki, who's top of his class at the elite school, and Senku, I've gotten to play a lot of people who are much smarter than me, and it's very fun and flattering. And the only advantage I have over them is that I can prepare, right? And that my lines have been written for me. But mostly I try to research ahead of time with the properties for those characters, because I need to know what they're planning because it's not just going to come to me in the way that it might come to them. Yeah. So Miyuki was difficult because he's a little bit deeper than where I naturally am, but also he is freaking out all the time. His internal monologue is a lot of screeching, and so I need to be manly, but also screech. And a lot of times that's just not possible. The truth is that, you know, despite what he wants to be, he isn't yet the paragon of masculine virtue that he wishes to be quite yet. He's still a sensitive teenager deep down. And I probably more so with my version because I can't help but do my version of it, right? But also there are just some moments in that where I was such a big fan of the original show. And so with Morgan, she directed season 2 and she cast me in season 2, which we recorded first. With her, she would just have great ideas for something that would be funny, and she was able to keep me moving. But then she wasn't able to direct season 1, so I had to direct season 1, and I self-directed. And what that amounted to was me waiting, you know, we had an episode due every week, and so I waited till Friday, and like Friday at, I would do it over the weekend usually. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would work on my parts, because all through the week I was working on, I was adapting scripts for Attack on Titan and also directing Kaguya-sama. And so during the week I was working on other stuff, and then on the weekend I would do my Miyuki recording. And I wanted it to be good so bad, so I spent like double the time I was supposed to spend. So if an episode was supposed to take 4 hours, I would spend like 8 hours on it, just like redoing the same line again and again. And later I ended up getting far enough in the manga to find out like that's sort of how he became the best in his class, and that really clicked with me. For those who read them, I mean, I think it's season 3 we're there. You see his room and all of the motivational posters he has that are like actually very toxic. It's like, if you're not the best, you're worthless sort of stuff is written on his wall. F-bomb sleep is one of the things he's written on his wall. Yeah, I respect that character a lot. He works a lot harder than me. I saw Kaguya manga back there. Nice. Oh yeah. Any other? Yes.
You worked on Tokyo Ghoul a little bit, right?
Yeah, I adapted scripts for Tokyo Ghoul, and I'm also a very small character in it. Tokyo Ghoul is the first show that I adapted scripts for. I did it under Monica Rial, so she's my first mentor in terms of script adaptation. And that was an awesome experience. Oh my god, what a cool show to get to work on. And then after there was a big sort of shift towards moving script writing in-house, I took an in-house writing job where I was salaried with Funimation for a while. And when that happened, a lot of the actors did not choose to go in-house for very good reasons, honestly. But as a result, they sort of like, I got like promoted by default. It wasn't like you've been doing so great that we're gonna lift you up. It was like, all the people who we used to rely on are gone now, so we're gonna see if you'll do. And so I was the guy that they made do with for Attack on Titan, Tokyo Ghoul, Overlord. There was something else in there.
Fullmetal Panic?
Fullmetal Panic, yeah. I got to work on a bunch of AAA titles because I was the one who took the job. So that was kind of cool. But I had a blast with Tokyo Ghoul. So viewers of the 3rd season will not be big fans of the 3rd season, especially if they read the manga, because they tried to cram so much material. It would be like if Attack on Titan tried to do the final season, I don't know, if they had just said what they were gonna do, what they did in the marketing, right? Where they said, this is the final season, this set of 12 episodes. So you can imagine, they've turned that into 48 episodes by being honest and by being faithful to the manga. And Tokyo Ghoul tried to cram it into 12. And honestly, I think it was a little more that they tried to cram into 12. More like it could have been probably 60 episodes, 70 episodes. But it was fun for me because what I would have is I would have two characters step into a room together and they're about to have a showdown, and one of them's like, "This is for you," a name that's never been said in the show before, as he draws his sword to like kill this guy. And then I'm like, okay, why do you feel that way? And then I like look it up and I'm like, oh, God damn it. God, why would they just, and so then I change it to, "This is for my brother, you murderer." And now we know what he's talking about. He's not saying, "This is for you," character nobody's ever seen before. So in the dub, it's, "This is for my brother, you murderer, you murdered my brother." Now we at least know what's going on. So I had a blast sort of trying to bridge that, trying to get in the exposition that it cut out, just because the anime was kind of rushed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it more difficult writing for like comedies or serious anime?
I think it depends. So it depends on how much your hands are tied in terms of being allowed to make the joke your own, and then how good the actual original joke was. So a mediocre comedy in which your hands are tied is very hard to adapt because it's soul crushing to know that the joke is not good. It is based on a pun in another language and you are not allowed to change it. And therefore the pun will not land. Like, if your hands are tied, then it's bad. But if it's simply a thing where like, okay, we need to make a pun joke here, come up with a pun, that's exciting and fun. Yeah, so it depends on how much freedom you have. And with Kaguya, I didn't adapt the scripts for that, but I directed season 1. And for season 2, anybody who's seen the dub will know that it is a whole different experience from the sub. It is not a language option so much as it's a rewatch option. I think is sort of the way that I would say that they targeted that dub, that Morgan wanted to go. And it works. It's really fun. But there were some people that were a little bit, well, you know, there's always someone angry on the internet, right? Name your thing.
Yeah.
But I guess as a big fan of the original subbed version, I wanted to try to bridge it and bring in those fans and sort of ease them into our version. And so, yeah, I tamed down a lot of the script for the first 6 episodes, especially when I was directing season 1, because I do think that the original jokes work really well for the most part. And then I gradually, like just let Jessica Sluys, that's the adapted writer, let her humor shine through because it is at full glory by season 2. Yeah. Both are fun. I like doing both for honestly similar reasons, because good drama has humor in it. Like I can't connect to a character if they can't make me laugh at least sometimes. It's like to protect myself, I will refuse to emotionally invest in someone who doesn't make me laugh a little bit.
Lucifer?
Yeah. Oh my God, Lucifer could break my heart. I'm all in with him. Yeah. Yes.
You touched upon this briefly, but when adapting scripts and directing translation, how much freedom do you generally have with like people in Japan or like the people in the US? Like how much freedom do you generally have to go and do things on your own, like you did in Kaguya-sama, or if there's like something very strict about the script?
Yeah, I think it varies from studio to studio. And it varies from director to director. So I adapted some scripts for I adapted all of Fire Force season 1, and I adapted a few scripts for Dr. Stone in season 1. With Dr. Stone, Cliff Chapin, the director, really wanted to be as faithful as we possibly could, and he had a great manga translation to draw from towards that end. That was conversational, but you know, honest to the translation. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed doing that. And he honestly won me over to his philosophy in a lot of ways. You know, the extreme that his philosophy goes to is if a line is mediocre, it is not our job to make it better. He would go that far. Whereas, say, Tyler Walker, he's the adaptive writer for most of Dr. Stone, but he sort of tailored his style to Cliff's. But whenever you see Tyler Walker's fairy tale scripts, he is not of the mindset that if a line is mediocre, we should leave it mediocre. He will punch up a script. And for fairy tale, that's so needed, in my opinion. Because fairy tale, you can tell whenever they're like, all right, we gotta get an episode out this week. We need 6 minutes of filler. All right, every time Natsu punches or gets punched, you gotta pan over to this guild and have each of them say, wow, what a punch. Dang, that was a crazy punch. You get him, Natsu. And they're like still, like they're not moving, only their mouths. You know? It's like, oh my gosh, y'all really had to work to get to 24 minutes. And it's got a 7-minute flashback intro at the beginning of the episode. They are just desperate to get this thing out. And us having more time gave us an opportunity to draw on the 150 episodes of history that we had to work with and come up with some little inside, just some comments that were true to the character, to the lore, but fresher and more meaningful than, wow, what a punch. Yeah, I forgot your question.
It was how much freedom do you typically have?
Right. So we have a fair amount of freedom still, especially at Crunchyroll. But there are some studios that are more stringent. Yeah, I don't think I should call anyone out. But the bigger the project is, the more the company wants to say, I would say. Yeah.
So how much room do you have for improvisation?
Almost none.
Really?
Except in Walla. When you're Walla and background voices, it's all improv. I got to the point where for my scripts, I would just give people, I would just write out what's happening instead of writing out lines. I would write out what's happening. So I'd be like, there's like a cafe background talk, and I'm like, okay, 2 of you are having a breakup, and then 2 of you are wait staff discussing how awkward and uncomfortable it is that they're having a breakup right there. There was one Walla session that I directed in which I told a couple guys to be kids at a park who had found a wounded bird. And by the end of the scene, they kill the bird with a rock to put it
Oh my god.
to put it out of its misery. If you turn up Cheer Boys episode 7 real loud, you can hear another drama unfolding in the background. Yeah.
Out of all the characters you voiced, which one of them was the easiest for you to voice?
Probably Lucifer. Yeah, Urushihara from Devil is a Part-Timer. So for him, life is a series of chores he has to perform so that he can then play video games. That resonates with me.
I mean, sometimes I don't do a lot of chores.
Yeah, it can be bad. It can be bad, but it's an easy, I could slip into full Urushihara pretty easily if I let myself. That's like me when I slouch, and I just slouch into his form. But he's also got that sass that's really fun to me. Just the lazily saying the shittiest thing you can think of. It's a good time.
Mostly he's just kind of laid back.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So he was and is really fun for me, and I do not have to do a lot of work to get into the voice. I don't have to research that character in advance. I pretty much know what he'll do in a given situation. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I know you said there wasn't much room for improvisation, but in Kaguya, Ian Sinclair has those really bombastic narration lines. So like, when you're directing that, how does that fit in?
Yeah.
With that whole thing, because those are hilarious.
So I think Ian and Morgan really throw paint at the walls and see what sticks. And I think they go pretty wild. And with me and him, it was so funny because we would come up with stuff that was really good by the end, but it was work to get there. And I remember him saying, like, people are gonna be like, wow, did you improv this? And we're gonna be like, no, we agonized over this. We spent hours rewriting lines and coming up with different versions. Okay, what if we try it like this? Okay, what if we do it? And then we'd find it. Yeah, but we worked really hard on that. It was not improv.
It was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was.
Now, he does invariably come up with some read or some take that, changes the whole meaning of the line, and you're like, yeah, we'll keep it. Damn you. Like, you can't help it. It's just too good to pass up, It's too organic and real feeling. Yeah, it was his idea to do the thing where, he shouts, "Oh, come on," and you hear him go off mic, like he's stomping out of the booth. Yeah, that was him. That was improv.
That's great.
Yeah.
A couple panels ago, like a couple years ago, you intrigued the audience with stories of you driving. And I was wondering.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember those.
Oh, fine. You were asking if I've crashed a car since then? Or did you just want me to recap?
Recap.
Well, I have crashed a car since then. All right, I'll start at the top. So I was 16 years old, driving to Funimation in my mom's Mitsubishi Montero Sport. It's like a SUV. Has a high center of gravity, which will become relevant. And I'm late because I agreed to do a session at 5 and I get out of school at 3:40, and it's an hour drive and there was traffic. So I'm going, and I need to get around this guy, so I try to change lanes, and I guess the car behind me was speeding up or something, because I checked. And then I start to change lanes, and then there's a car right there, and I'm like, oh God, and I do this. And then but I do this too hard. I swerve, as they say. And then I am too far into this lane, so I go this. And then the whole car turns sideways.
Oh.
Well, I end up with the car covering the 2 fast lanes in a 4-lane highway. And I'm just, and I'm suspended by my seatbelt, because the passenger side is down there. And I just am waiting for one of the cars to hit me at 75 miles an hour, because I'm stationary in the fast lane. So I don't want to take off my seatbelt because I figure that's right when it'll happen. So I wait there for like 5 minutes. The radio, I was listening to Jigsaw Falling Into Place by Radiohead, and the radio turned off for a bit, but came back on. I thought it was interesting. And then a off-duty police officer knocked on the glass, and he was like, "Hey, you all right there, son?" I was like, "Oh yeah, good." They're like, "Why don't you climb on out? Your car is leaking fuel." And I said, "You sure it's safe?" He's like, "Well, it's not safe there." So I got out, and yeah, that was my first crash. Next, I saved up enough. I saved up $3,300, and I bought a Nissan 300ZX sports car. For some reason, my parents decided that I needed a sports car. I mean, it was my money, for what it's worth, and I was working at a grocery store too. So it wasn't all just anime money. So I get that car, and I'm driving at like 8 p.m. on a weeknight, like a week after there was a big freeze. and it's kind of dark, and so I don't see the dark ice that I'm going over. I was literally going to get a new toothbrush because I had like dropped mine in a toilet or something. So I again try to change lanes, but it's on a black ice spot, and the ice spins my car out, and I hit 2 trees. And then my dad had to come, and he sort of custom towed me with a chain back to the house, and we ended up selling my sweet car. What was her name?
Roxanne, I think.
Roxanne. How do you know?
My memory's like a steel trap. I remember this from like 2019.
That's amazing. Poor Roxanne. We sold her for $200 in the end to a junkyard keeper. She did have to put on that red dress. That was sort of a rough shoehorn, but thank you for laughing. Ben's the good one. So the good one is when I drove into the 7-Eleven.
Yeah. I think that one actually may have been Roxanne.
That was Roxanne. Okay, so what was my 300 CX? Yoshimi Nakamura from Yoshimi Battles the Flaming Robots. The evil robots? From that Flaming Lips song where Yoshimi battles the robots. And then Yoshimi Nakamura is the name of, I believe, a character from the precursor to Hunger Games, Battle Royale. Pretty in-depth reference, all right? But it's a Japanese car, it's a Japanese name. I don't know. Yeah, so, I didn't get any sleep one night. I had someone over and they snored. I'm gonna leave it at that. They snored a lot. I should have just, anyway, it's fine. It's over now. I get up and I try to brush my teeth. There's a common thread here of Aaron and trying to keep his teeth clean and failing. I try to brush my teeth and I'm out of toothpaste. So I'm upset. I tell myself I'll go to the gas station and get some gum. So I go to the 7-Eleven, it's right by where I work. I work as a waiter at this point. And waiters need to have good breath. You're not gonna get good tips if you're stinking the place up. So I go into the gas station, I grab some, minty gum, and my card is declined. So I am just so upset. This is not my day. And I get into my car, and I go to reverse, and I hit something. I rear end into something, and I freak out, because I'm pretty sure it's a toddler. It's just gotta be, right?
Oh.
And so I simultaneously try to slam the brakes and go into drive so that I'll stop reversing over the corpse of this child, who turned out to actually be like a weird half pipe that had been cut short. Anyway, I didn't hit the brakes, I hit the gas. And this was a Mustang that I was, for some reason, given after the 300 CX. I say given, I bought it, but my parents shouldn't have let me buy it. And I revved into, with all that power, all that American horsepower, into the wall of the 7-Eleven. Something interesting, a couple interesting things. There are a lot more people in a 7-Eleven working there at any given point in time than you might think. Because within 3 minutes, there were no less than 8 employees and family members of employees surrounding me. They made me take a picture next to my shame. They probably have that framed somewhere. And eventually a police officer came. He was like, "Are you drunk?" And I was like, "No, sir." And he was like, "Wow." And he let me drive out. My car drove out of there. Ford should have given me a sponsorship because I showed how durable their vehicle is. It was not totaled, we repaired it. And then, oh right, calling with the insurance company. They were like, my insurance agent was like, "Were you drunk?" I was like, "No." And he's like, "Were you arrested for being under the influence?" "No." "Were you given any form of citation for ingesting substance?" He could not get it through his head that I was dumb enough to do this sober. It was so embarrassing. Yeah, so that's that one. Then later, that car did get totaled because I got hit by someone who was drunk driving. They just ran through a yellow light, a blinking yellow light, and I believe the term is T-boned me into a lamppost. So that was the death of Roxanne. Yeah. And then my most recent crash was much tamer. It was just in a parking lot, and we both rear-ended each other. And then we got out, and I said, well, I can't say that wasn't my fault. And he was like, you know what, I can't say it wasn't my fault. And we shook hands, and we were chill. It was great. Thanks.
So, at the end of one of the season 3 episodes, when you beat Shirogane raps, like, would you have wanted to like redub as Miyuki Shirogane for that rap?
So I am gonna redub Kaguya. That was always in the books. That was from the beginning. They were like, we'll get you back in. But God, do I not look forward to attempting to replicate Clifford Chapin's godlike performance. My God, he's amazing. I'm gonna ask if I can try to do it from home and then we do pickups, because like I get performance anxiety with that kind of thing. Especially after seeing him do it so good. Look, mine's not gonna be as good.
Don't worry about it.
How could it be? That was perfection. I was amazed. I typed to him whenever I saw that video. I said, I thought we agreed you were gonna sandbag to make me look good, dude. Come on. Yeah, he did great. I'm very grateful to him for basically like keeping the dub relevant, because timing means everything in this age of convenience, you know? So if we had waited for me to finally feel better, I think the dub would have really fallen off in a lot of people's hearts and minds. Yeah.
How was it like to do the voice of Alphonse in Fullmetal Alchemist, especially being like so young?
So yeah, when I was 11 is when I got cast as Alphonse in Fullmetal Alchemist. What was it like? I was not a very self-aware child. And so I kind of just did what I wanted. It was pretty great. They would bribe me for 4-hour sessions. They would give me hourly breaks to go play Halo with the engineers. The engineers had 2 Xboxes hooked up together so that they could do 8-player multiplayer battles. It was just amazing. It was heaven to my adolescent mind. And I was so bad. I remember all I would do was get into a vehicle and then run people over, because I couldn't shoot for crap. And it's a pretty cheap way to get kills. And I could see these 30-year-old men kind of steaming about it. Get wrecked. Is that what it's been? Is that why I've crashed these cars? Is it karma? I've been getting wrecked for years. In terms of the performing, I would get really mad at Al for doing irrational things. I'm a very, I value logic highly. And so when Al decides that the testimony of Barry the Chopper, a man who habitually lures women into a truck so he can cut them into little pieces, when I decide that his word is more valuable than my brother's, I do not know what to deal with. I was so mad at Al. I was like, are you stupid? Can you think of no ulterior motive that this individual may have for saying these things? I was also quite mad about him saving Kimbley, who is a murderer, because I saved Kimbley from Marla, and then Kimbley goes on to kill hundreds of Ishbalans. And I was like, called it, you big dumb. Oh, revenge is wrong. And then, so fans would come up to me and they'd be like, I've always thought that Al was the more mature brother, and I'd be like, I'd go after him. Now that said, I've since played a game called Undertale, and that just really warms me up to Alphonse's philosophy in terms of revenge. And I've also come to understand Al better, but ironically, it took me being more mature than an 11-year-old to understand what that 11-year-old was going through. And that, yeah, it's not so much that he's trusting one testimony over another, it's that he's realizing that he has no proof that anything is real because he doesn't have any sensation, any touch, sense. It's an interesting commentary on just the fact that, you know, we say, I think, therefore I am, but I think that more than that, what we mean is I, to varying degrees, hear, see, smell, touch, I have this wide range of sensory experiences, therefore I am. And I think that Al lacking those things would, anyone who lacks all of those things would naturally start to question their existence, I think. Yeah.
Speaking of Fullmetal Alchemist, I understand, like, you know, seeing how you guys normally record separately and sometimes you don't even see each other, but have you ever met, or your successor to the role, Maxie Whitehead, have you ever met her in the course of your career? Or?
Yeah, I've met Maxie once or twice. I'm actually a big fan of Maxie in Tokyo Ghoul. Maxie voices Juzo in Tokyo Ghoul, the little Stitch kid who's like an incredible fighter. And Juzo's like my favorite character. I just love. I'm gonna go with their design. I forget their gender. It's quite ambiguous for me anyway. Tokyo Ghoul does a lot of interesting gender stuff. I like it for that. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, this is the point where I'll ask, if you've already asked a question, please keep your hand down so that I can make sure I get at least one for everybody. Yes? Yeah, and it's usually inappropriate. Like, it's usually like a serious line where like there's some sort of weird pun that could make it, you know. I actually, I wrote one that Felicia and Austin called me out on. I don't know what I was thinking, but Kaneki was talking about how he's hollow inside. He's like an empty person. And the line, I was looking at the manga and stuff, and I was like, okay, so he has a void inside him, like a gaping hole. So I had him say, there's a gaping hole in me. And they called me. They were like, Aaron. I was like, what? And they're like, really? You're just a pure soul, huh? You can't possibly imagine. Sorry. Yeah, so there's that. That's all that comes to mind right now. It was in his heart. Yeah.
Was there ever an audition that you tried out for that you didn't get that you really wish you did, still kind of do? Not necessarily because the person who got it did a bad job.
All of them. Yeah, I mean, every single time. I don't audition if I don't want it. Especially these days. I've had enough roles to where I kind of, if I don't really want a role, I kind of want to get out of the way of someone who does. I'm fortunate to have a lot of reprisals at this point in my career, so I don't necessarily need many new roles to continue to, you know, be able to provide for myself. So yeah, when I audition, I desire it. Yeah, I do refrain from getting specific with that sort of question because of what you sort of pointed out, which is that there's a slight implication that's difficult to avoid. Like if I say, I really wish I was the main character of X title, then I'm implying on some level that I think I could do as good or better a job than the person who did get that role. So the way that I do like to answer it is I'll look at titles that haven't received any sort of anime adaptation, so stuff that's just a comic still. I would love to be a voice in Undertale. I want Undertale to be an animated series, and I'd love to voice in that. That'd be super cool. There's already such good fan animations. I highly recommend Bonnie-chan, if anybody's an Undertale fan.
Yes.
Check her out. Yeah? Nice. Yeah.
How did you actually get into voice acting and make it a career into your adulthood?
Yeah, I'm like the worst person to ask. It was just raw nepotism, the family trade, the corruption of our society. Yeah, my cousin, his name is Justin Cook. He is, oh my gosh, Hiroshima, that's his name.
Yes.
In My Hero Academia. He's Yusuke in Yu Yu Hakusho. He is a awesome actor, but he was also directing Fruits Basket back in the day. And he didn't have any, normally they would use adult women who would sort of do a little greeny thing, and then that's how they did voice. And that's still how they do a lot of boy characters. But he wanted to try and use a real boy, in quotes, a person with a young person with an authentically masculine sound, and he decided that was me. I was pretending to be literate. I was reading Lord of the Rings, sort of understanding, at the tender age of 9. And so what I could do was read a page that I'd never read before without sounding like I was struggling to read, which is what most kids struggle with. If they can memorize the line, they can be pretty good actors. But sight reading is hard for most kids, and that's the one advantage I had over other kids. Yeah, aside from that, my talent was just being a real boy. And then, yeah, by the time I just sounded like every other dude who could pitch their voice to sound teenage, I had learned how to act and been paid to learn how to act. So I was just so lucky. There are open auditions. There are ways to get agents that will get you into audition lists. There are classes you can take if you're interested in getting into voiceover. Justin Briner, Sarah Wiedenheft, those are 2 actors that got into Funimation through the open audition process. They applied, just sent an email saying, hey, I'd love to audition for y'all. Maybe they attached a resume. They didn't have to though. I don't think Sarah did. All you have to do is find that email address, email it, and then in about 2 years, when they get through the list, they will ask you to try out. The caveat there is you need to be local for this route to work, because, you know, when they did really well at the tryouts, they then got brought in for Walla. And they did Walla for a year, where they did background voices, where they had to find birds with broken wings and parts and riff about that for hours. And then once they sort of did their time, then they started to get bigger roles. Yeah. If you want to live here and get into voiceover, making a home studio is gonna be your wings. That's what'll really get you to where you can readily audition for stuff. There is a lot of open audition stuff out there for indie projects. It's not that hard to get your resume stuffed. Mm-hmm. Yes?
What was your favorite part from voice acting Oscar from RWBY?
Definitely voicing Ozpin is my favorite part of voicing Oscar from RWBY. So when Ozpin speaks through Oscar's mouth, that's me. And it was the first sort of posh, erudite role that I ever got to play. He doesn't sound that self-indulgent. I don't know, I was just doing that. Anyway, what Ozpin sounds like, I still remember Kerry Shawcross's direction. He said, you know, Ozpin says that he has made more mistakes than any man, woman, or child in Revenant. That's one of his lines. So this is someone who deeply hates himself. And so, yeah, it's sort of a very posh attempt at confidence, because he feels like he needs to project confidence, but all of it's tinged with self-loathing. Yeah. And I'd never gotten to play a character that complicated, I don't think. I mostly played awkward teenagers up to then, including Oscar. Yeah. So, yeah, getting trusted to try out a different voice and getting to do my take on what Shannon had quite masterfully set up was very exciting for me. I also like that one scene where Oscar and Ruby are both freaking out about whether they should tell Ironwood, and they stammer over each other. I thought that was adorable. Thank you.
I was gonna ask, like, since it hasn't really been mentioned yet, what was like your favorite like thing, like I know in My Hero that you did like Tamaki, right? So what was your favorite thing about like, doing him?
My favorite thing about Tamaki is that he sees other people. He sees the best in others, including his enemies. So when he fights the Expendables, he does this beautiful thing. The last line is, "Friends don't eat friends, do they?" And what it is that he sees the good in his opponent. He sees that they really trust each other and would never hurt each other. And so he uses one of them as a human shield. So he turns the one redeemable thing about these villains, and he uses it to defeat them, which is metal. And it's all rooted in the same thing that is his behavior towards Mirio, where he sees why Mirio is so amazing, and his behavior towards Nezure, where he knows that she'll do really well in the beauty contest is what comes to mind actually. He has a lot of confidence in his friends based on accurate assessment, and he has confidence in his enemies too, based also on accurate assessment. I think he knows his limits, and he knows other people's not their limits so much as their capabilities. Yeah, so that was my favorite thing about him. He's also, just the other cool thing is just interacting with so many fans who say, "He is me, thank you for presenting what I feel." And he does it in a way that a lot of anxious characters don't, because a lot of anxious characters in anime are obnoxious. And that's the last thing a socially anxious person wants to be. And so when you see a person who's nervous, that is making a butt of themselves, you're like, oh gosh, it's uncomfortable to watch as someone who has some social anxiety. And I really had a lot whenever I was high school aged. I would get the shakes and lose my breath whenever I had to read in front of the whole class and stuff. And then I'd come to a convention and be fine. It was really weird. It's because y'all are nice. I know that anime fans will be nice, especially at cons. Cons are kind of special places. But yeah, having that experience of having people feel connect with a character that I got to play to that level was really cool.
Out of the cast of Fullmetal Alchemist, who would you like to play for this
This is really tough. I would want. I don't. So it's been a while since I've played, and so I'm forgetting. Does Azrael have a gender? Azrael's a guy. I think I want to try Azrael, but maybe Azrael should be a smaller being. Maybe we want Justin Briner. I'd like to direct Undertale. That's what I'd really like to do. Because yeah, I don't think I'd be. There's got to be a better papyrus than me. Though I am tall. Oh my God. Okay, so Jared Green would be Sans. Totally do it. Me and Jared Green almost went to a Halloween party as Sans and Papyrus. For those that don't know, Jared Green is he's Shinzo in My Hero Academia. So he's got that deeper voice. Yeah, but I would settle for being just some random weirdo. Maybe
Timmy.
I can't be Timmy. Because Timmy's gonna be Sarah Wheaton-Heft. She's too good. She's too good at that. God, I love so. Never mind. I won't get too far. This isn't an Undertale panel. I won't do it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
You have a lot in common with me
In terms of the, thank you, 5, in terms of his work ethic as a ideal, yes, but I fall far short of my own work ethic ideal, whereas he meets his, and in fact exceeds healthy levels of work. I'm quite different, especially at this point in my life. I sort of am very lazy, and then I will overcommit myself, and then I'll work way too hard on stuff. But I have to be forced to do it. Like, I have to accidentally say yes to 2 script adaptation gigs and a directing gig and 3 roles, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm working so hard. But I don't really do that on purpose. So right now, I'm not doing any scripts or directing, and I'm trying to write. I'm trying to have a good writing habit, but often my whole day will be taken up by like 2 chores. I'm really bad right now. I'm so ashamed. No, it's good. I resolve to do better. I want to be like Miyuki, basically. In terms of his, the big difference between us is that being a man means a lot to him. And like, I can turn to my father for inspiration for that, for that aspect of his superego, but like, yeah, it doesn't mean a lot to me. I've accepted a long time ago that I'm not a very manly man. I'm cool with that. Yeah. What else about him? He also can get a little bit flustered by inappropriate things or off-color comments, and I'm very hard to fluster. That's the other thing. I may feign being a bit flustered, but I generally, I spend too much time on the internet to get flustered these days. Yeah. There's somebody, a question over here? Yes.
In Tokyo Ghoul, what do you think King Kaneki's biggest turning point is?
Ooh, Kaneki's biggest turning point in Tokyo Ghoul. I mean, the easy one is when he pounds a centipede out of his mouth right after he's taken his first bite of flesh, right? That's probably got to be my answer, because that's where he, I mean, that's where the big voice change comes. That's where he sort of accepts a more primal and cruel version of the world than what he previously was clinging to. And I think everything else sort of comes from that. Heisei comes to mind as another one, though, because Heisei is sort of an answer to that, where he sees the world for what it is, but is determined to be kinder than it. Gosh, so maybe it's when he kills, I actually forget the guy's name, but the guy who created Heisei. What's his name? The guy who turns Kaneki into Heisei?
Kano? Or
Kano?
No, Armin?
Ayano? Yeah.
You're talking about the white guy, right?
Yes.
What is his name?
Akuman? Or is
Akuman? That's so
like
close.
AR or something.
Yeah, well, anyway, we only have 5 minutes. So it's when he kills the big guy, the main guy from the CCD, and thus sort of destroys the route where he could have been sort of a partisan for humanity, and then he's decided to go his own path at that point. And he murders Heisei too in his head, right? That, yeah. What a cool character. Yes, Rudy. Yes.
Can you take a quick picture of the crowd for me?
Yeah.
Will you post it?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Wait, flip it around the other way.
Oh wait,
like,
hang on.
actually, you don't have to be in this picture. Oh my God! 3, 2, 1. Oh, my neck.
That worked. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh. All right. I think we're gonna call it there. Thank y'all so much.